The sun beat down like a forge on iron as Wyatt Mercer hauled another shovel of red dirt from the hole he'd carved behind his cabin. He'd lived 8 long years out here by choice, measuring time by chores and the slow arc of daylight, convincing himself that silence meant safety. Horses, hills, and hard work were his only company. He believed quiet was a wall the world couldn't climb. But fate likes to kick doors in. The stagger of a horse, a broken cry across empty ground, yanked Wyatt from his stack of split logs. A rider slid from the saddle, shirt soaked through with blood, breath ragged and shallow. "Please," the man rasped, fingers clamping Wyatt's shirt with surprising strength. "My wife, Elena. She's all I've got left." Wyatt scanned the land. No second horse. No woman. Just dry rock, wind, and space big enough to make a man doubt himself. "Where is she?" he pressed. The stranger's grip tightened. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "An hour. Maybe 2 behind me. Promise me, you'll look after her. She's got nowhere else." Wyatt's chest pulled tight. A dying man's plea about a woman he'd never met. One vow that could crack 8 years of careful distance. "I'm no good at taking care of anyone," he muttered, the truth tasting like rust. "Promise," the man urged, voice splintering. "She's special. And dangerous. People want her hurt for what she knows." What she knows. The words hung in the cold, clean air like smoke that wouldn't clear. Wyatt felt a chill slip up his spine. What kind of woman rides through bad country with secrets sharp enough to draw blood? The stranger pulled a small leather pouch from his jacket with shaking fingers. "Give her this. She'll understand. Don't let her open it until she's ready to tell you the truth." Wyatt took the pouch. It was heavier than it looked. Something hard pressed against the leather. Felt like metal, like a key. "What truth?" he asked. But the man's eyes had already gone flat. His hand fell from Wyatt's shirt like a branch breaking. Wind rose and carried a far-off drum of hooves. Someone was coming fast. Someone who knew these tracks. And Wyatt Mercer, who'd built a life on being left alone, had just promised a dead man he'd guard a woman he'd never met, a woman carrying secrets men would kill to bury. As the hoofbeat swelled, he realized he'd inherited more than a widow. He'd taken on a mystery that would either pull him out of his empty life or smash what little he had left. The only question was which road Elena would put him on. She rose from the dust like a vision from a bad dream. Elena crossrode a black mare, dark hair snapping in the wind, dress torn and stained. But it was her eyes that pinned Wyatt in place, cold, fierce, desperate, and somehow not afraid of the armed stranger standing over her husband's body. "Is he gone?" she asked, sliding down with a smooth, practiced motion. No tears. No panic. Only a clear, steady question that chilled Wyatt more than any scream would have. 10 minutes, he said, stepping back, palm drifting toward his gun without thinking. Her calm made him jumpy in ways he didn't like. Elena knelt, laid a hand on the still chest, and whispered something Wyatt couldn't catch. Then she stood, dusted off her skirt, and looked at him with those unsettling green eyes. "Did he tell you about me?" "Said you were his wife. Said you needed protection," Wyatt answered, jaw tight around the leather pouch in his pocket. "Said folks want you dead because of what you know." Something shifted in her face, fear or recognition, then vanished. "What else?" "That you're dangerous." She let out a short, humorless breath. Aaron always did undersell the truth. She glanced toward the horizon, where thin dust ribbons hinted at riders. "How many can you handle, Mr. Mercer?" The dust grew thicker, closer. "How many should I be worried about?" he said. "All of them," she replied, walking to her saddle, and pulling a rifle with hands too steady to be new to it. She checked the chamber without looking, as smooth as a drill. "They've been tailing us 3 days. Aaron figured we could lose them in the hills." The hoofbeat was clear now, at least 4, maybe 5, riding hard. "What do they want?" Wyatt asked, but Elena was already moving to the corner of his cabin, fitting herself behind a stout post, eye to the sights. "Same thing everyone thinks when they look at me," she said, glancing back. And for the first time he saw something real flash in her eyes, fear sharp as glass. "To own me." Wyatt felt the weight of the pouch, felt the weight of the promise. Aaron had called her special. He'd also warned she was dangerous. Watching the way she held that rifle, scanning the ground like a scout who never slept, Wyatt started to understand both were true. "Root cellar behind the kitchen," he said, making a decision that would change everything. "You can hide while I don't hide," Elena cut in, planting herself behind cover and settling her cheek to the stock. "And neither should you, unless you want them turning your life to ash." The riders crested the ridge, 5 men in long coats, hat brims low. Even at a distance, Wyatt could tell how they sat their horses, quiet, balanced, at home. "Professionals. Hunters," Elena murmured. "They'll talk first. They always do. Offer you coins to hand me over. Promise it'll all go easy." She turned her head just enough to meet his eyes. "If I say no, then we find out what kind of man you are." They drew close enough for faces to take shape. Hard, used to bad work, eyes like empty wells. What scared Wyatt wasn't their guns. It was the knowledge that he was about to learn what secret Elena carried, and whether he had the spine to keep a promise that might wreck his life. The lead rider lifted a hand. They stopped 50 yards out. He was tall, silver hair, and a scar dragging from ear to jaw. When he smiled, it looked like skin splitting. "Afternoon," he called, voice carrying clean. "Name's Clinton Marlowe. We're tracking a woman, dark hair, green eyes, seen with a man named Aaron Pike." Wyatt stepped forward, rifle easy. "Ain't seen M." Marlowe's smile widened, hungry. "That's curious. We followed tracks to your door." He pointed at the ground, where fresh hoof marks told on them. "And unless my eyes are failing, that's Aaron Pike cooling beside your woodpile." Elena's voice was a thread beside him. "He's Bureau. Federal badge. The rest are for hire." Bureau. That tilted the ground under Wyatt's boots. If Elena was wanted by a U.S. Marshal, she wasn't only dangerous, she was an accused criminal. And he'd just vowed to shield her. "The woman's wanted for murder," Marlowe went on, hand lazy near his gun. "More than one. $5,000 on her head, dead or alive." 5,000, more money than Wyatt had seen in 5 years. Enough to buy better pasture, more stock, maybe a hand to help. All he had to do was step aside. "What murders?" Wyatt called, feeling Elena go still. She shot a judge in Santa Fe, killed him in his own courtroom, then dropped 2 deputies who tried to bring her in, cold as a stone. Marlowe never took his eyes off the cabin. A woman like that doesn't belong near decent folks. Wyatt's thoughts raced. Aaron had said people wanted her hurt for what she knew. But what if the plain truth was worse? What if she was just a killer running from the noose? "She's lying to you," Marlowe added, like he could hear Wyatt's doubt. "Whatever story she spun, whatever she offered, it's all smoke. That's what killers do. They lie." Elena's breath was steady, but her fingers were white on the stock. "That judge was on the take," she whispered, just for Wyatt. "He sold verdicts. I had proof. Why not go through the law? Because he owned the sheriff, owned half the line between here and the border." Her voice roughened. "The only justice that day came from my gun." Wyatt swallowed hard. Vigilante justice answered 1 question and raised 3 more. Maybe she was a hero. Maybe she was a murderer. Maybe she was both. "Time's burning," Marlowe called. "Hand her over, we ride out. No trouble for you. Keep the reward." If it were you, what would you do? Trust a stranger who admits she pulled the trigger, or hand her to men wearing badges and sleep easy? The wind dragged the taste of gunpowder across Wyatt's tongue. Far away, more riders were coming. Wyatt chose without blinking. "She's not here," he shouted, voice cutting through the gust. Whoever you want kept riding. The lie hung heavy, thick as smoke. Marlowe's hungry grin vanished. Something colder moved in behind his eyes. "I'd hope for easy," he drawled, raising 2 fingers. His men slid into a wide half-circle, gun slanting. The warning shot chewed a chunk out of the post inches from Wyatt's ear. Elena was already motion, rifle kicking, as she dove behind the trough. One hunter toppled off his horse, clutching a shoulder. a broken sound flying from him. "Cellar," Wyatt yelled, stabbing a finger toward the hidden latch. Elena never looked away from her sights. "Can't," she called, voice level in the noise. "Trap us underground. They'll burn you out." Another slug hissed past Wyatt's head. He ducked behind his chopping block, counting by habit. 5 men, fast hands, at least one who'd shot people running. One wore a star. Bad odds for 2. Aaron's last words rattled in his skull. She's special and dangerous. Watching her, Wyatt finally understood. She wasn't spraying rounds. She was breaking their shape, forcing them to cover, chopping angles, stealing their rhythm. She wasn't trying to drop them all. She was buying time. "For what?" he shouted during a lull. "Back up," she said, reloading smooth as breath. Aaron sent word. 10 minutes. From who? People who know what Judge Renshaw really was. Her next shot knocked a rider's mount sideways, spilling the man into sand, cursing. Folks who've been waiting to cut Marlowe's business out by the roots. Business. The word hit like a hammer. This wasn't a simple grab and go. This was bigger and uglier. "He's no Marshal," Elena said, voice steady even as lead tore air. He and Renshaw were partners. Fake trials. Bought verdicts. Profit split. Anyone who talked gone. The pouch in Wyatt's pocket suddenly felt hot. Evidence. That's what Aaron had died for. "What's in it?" he rasped. "Renshaw's ledger," she answered. "Every bribe, every frame, every name. Aaron stole it before they could lock it down. That's why they're riding us like hounds." Thunder rolled. Only it wasn't thunder. It was more hooves. A lot of them, coming fast from the east. Marlowe heard it too. His men twitched, eyes cutting over their shoulders. "Last chance, Mercer," he bellowed, desperation cracking through. "Give us the woman and the book, and you live." The new riders broke into view, 8, maybe 10, flying across the Badlands. Wyatt couldn't read their flags at this distance, but Elena seemed to. "That's my answer," she called, sending a round close enough to Marlowe to make him duck hard. What came next would haunt Wyatt for years. Marlowe slashed his hand, and his men changed tactics on a dime. No more careful angles. They turned their rifles on everything Wyatt owned, water barrels, tool shed, even the horses penned by the corral. Not aiming to capture now, aiming to punish. The life Wyatt had stacked, fixed, and built for 8 silent years shattered under a storm of lead and splinters. He learned something then that books don't teach. Sometimes doing right costs you every piece you've got. The new riders thundered in, badges flashing bright and real in the late light, not the paper lies Marlowe waved around. Their lead carried himself like a man who was tired of rot and ready to scrub. "Federal authority," he roared, men fanning fast and clean. "Clinton Marlowe, you're under arrest by order of the territorial governor." Marlowe's face blanched. "What is this, Hart?" "It's justice catching up," Marshal Owen Hart said, dropping from the saddle, hand easy on his gun. "We've had eyes on you for months." Judge Renshaw sang, "Before he died." Died. The word thudded in Wyatt's chest. If Renshaw was gone, what was this fight still about? "Hart gave out 3 days back," Hart said, gaze sharp. "But not before he confessed to everything. Cash, sham hearings, bodies in the dark." Elena's rifle dipped an inch, confusion flickering across her face. "Then why chase us?" "Because corpses can't talk," Marlowe snarled, sudden triumph flaring ugly. "But ledgers can. And witnesses can. You're the last thread, Miss Cross." The pouch on Wyatt's hip grew twice as heavy. This wasn't only old crimes. This was a web that stretched further than one crooked bench. "Stand down, Clinton," Hart ordered, final as a gavel. "It's done." Instead of surrendering, Marlowe grabbed for iron. The crack of guns was short and cruel. When the smoke thinned, 2 hunters lay still in the dust, and Marlowe gripped a bleeding arm, teeth bared. Hart strode toward Wyatt and Elena. "The ledger," he said, breath steady. "Aaron Pike died getting it out. Where is it?" Wyatt pulled the pouch, feeling its heft one last time, and handed it over. Inside, a small book flashed, tight handwriting, dates, names, amounts, a map of rot that had felt untouchable until now. Hart flipped pages, face hardening. Enough here to pull down half the government. He looked up. Renshaw wasn't working alone. Elena finally lowered her rifle all the way, the fight draining out of her shoulders. So it's over for me? Charges dropped, Hart said. Self-defense. All of it. He looked around at what was left of Wyatt's place, something like sympathy on his face. We'll push for compensation for your losses. I don't want their money, Wyatt said quietly. His horses were gone. His shed, his barrels, the small order he'd made for himself. All burned or broken. But he'd kept his promise. Somehow, that felt like enough. Elena walked to Aaron's body, knelt, and whispered to him again. Words only the dead could share. When she stood, tears finally found her. He was a good man, she told Wyatt, voice thick. He didn't deserve dirt and dust. He got justice, Wyatt said, meeting her eyes. As the marshals hauled Marlowe and the survivors away, Wyatt understood the hardest part hadn't even started. What do you do with a woman who'd just lost her husband, who'd shot for justice and nearly died for truth, who was looking at you like you might be the answer to a question she wasn't ready to say out loud? When quiet fell, it felt louder than gunfire. They stood among the ruins of Wyatt's life, only wind through broken slats and a hawk crying somewhere far off. I'm sorry, Elena said at last, words barely carrying. About your home, your horses, everything. Wyatt looked at the scorched corral and the pile of ash where his supplies had been. 8 years built by hand, gone in an afternoon. And yet a strange calm slid over him. It can be rebuilt. Elena shook her head, the haunted look back in her eyes. Not by me. She stepped to her mare, checked the bags like a woman who did everything twice out of habit. I need to go. There'll be questions. Trials. Men in Renshaw's circle will want to crack at me. Where? Wyatt asked, voice rougher than he meant. She lifted a shoulder, and he saw how tired she really was, the kind of tired that comes from running too long. California. Maybe Mexico. Somewhere they don't know my name. She put a boot to the stirrup, then paused, eyes lingering on him. Thank you for keeping Aaron's promise, for trusting a stranger. Something broke open in Wyatt's chest. 8 years of quiet crumbling like chardboards. He'd told himself solitude was peace. Watching her prepare to ride out, he realized it had been emptiness. Stay, he said, the word raw and unplanned. Elena's hand stilled on the reins. What? Stay. Help me rebuild, he said, sweeping a hand at the wreckage. I could use the company. And you look like someone who's tired of running. For a heartbeat, hope lit her face, bright, clean, new. Then caution closed over it. You don't know me, Wyatt. You don't know what I've done. She glanced at where Aaron had lain. I shot 3 men in that courthouse. Maybe they earned it. Maybe it was justice. But I still pulled the trigger. I'm not the kind who builds homes. I'm the kind who burns them down. Aaron didn't think so. Aaron was dying. What did you whisper to him? Wyatt asked gently. Elena's breath hitched. I promised I'd find a way to live again. Not just survive. Her voice trembled. I don't think I remember how. Then learn, Wyatt said, laying his hand over hers on the rein. We'll figure it out together. They stood that way for a long moment, her in the saddle, him among the ashes, both balanced on the edge of a choice that would change everything. I don't know how to be anyone's wife, she said softly, almost a plea. And I don't know how to be anyone's husband, Wyatt answered, a real smile tugging at his mouth for the first time in 8 years. Seems fair to start even. Elena looked out where the sun was sliding behind the peaks. Out there was a life of sleeping light, gun within reach, always watching the door. Here, in the ruins, stood a man offering something she didn't think she deserved. If I stay, she said, eyes steady on his, it won't be as Aaron's widow. It'll be me. Just Elena. I wouldn't want it any other way. Slowly, like testing thin ice, she swung down. Then we better talk lumber. They built a small fire and shared the last of Wyatt's coffee while the sky turned gold on the ridges. For the first time since Aaron fell, Elena's face softened. We'll need boards first, Wyatt said, sketching lines in the dirt with a stick. Mill's 2 days' ride. They'll deliver if the price is right. What price? Elena's eyes caught the firelight. If you mean blood money from Marlowe's bounty, I don't want their coin, Wyatt said, firm. I've got enough put away to start. She watched him quietly. Why? You could have taken 5,000, started new somewhere else. No burned cabin. No wanted woman. Wyatt stared at the flames a long time. 8 years ago I ran too. Not from law, just from people. Expectations. The way life kept pressing until I couldn't breathe. I thought being alone meant I couldn't be hurt. He met her eyes with a truth he hadn't said out loud. You changed that. Watching you fight for something bigger. Watching you choose truth though it cost everything. I saw that hiding wasn't preventing pain. It was cutting out life. Elena nudged a coal with a stick, sparks spinning up into the dark. Life finds you anyway. It does. Silence, settled, comfortable, and easy. Then Elena spoke so softly, he almost missed it. I was married before Aaron. Real married. His name was Thomas. We had a little farm outside Tucson. She kept her gaze on the fire. Renshaw's men killed him. Burned our place. He'd seen money change hands and said he'd testify. Understanding hit Wyatt like a steel bar. You went after Renshaw. Not at first, she said. At first I begged other judges. Other marshals. Anyone. They told me grief makes women imagine things. Told me to go home and accept it. The laugh that followed was brittle and wrong. So I stopped asking. She lifted her head, green eyes fierce again. That's who I am. I took justice when the system refused to see it. Wyatt finally understood why Aaron had said dangerous. Not because Elena was cruel. Because she was willing to do what others wouldn't when every door shut. I'm not asking you to be someone else, he said. I'm asking you to stay. As the first stars blinked on, he wondered if two people carved thin by loss could learn to build again. And if love could bridge a gap they'd both cut into their hearts to survive. Morning broke with wheels on the path. Marshal Hart returned with a wagon full of lumber, hardware, food, and 2 men who began unloading without fuss. Compensation, Hart said, climbing down, the edge in his voice softened by a tired pride. Governor's orders. He pulled a clean envelope. Full pardon for Elena Cross, signed and sealed. And a commendation for your help, Mr. Mercer. Elena took the paper with hands that trembled just enough to show what it meant. It's over, she whispered, disbelief rising like a tide. Completely, Hart said. Renshaw's papers led to a dozen more names. The whole line snapped. He glanced over the scorch yard. You paid a hard price. We both did, Wyatt said, sharing a look with Elena. After the marshals rolled out, a deep quiet settled. Not empty this time, but expectant. Building isn't only nails and boards. It's trust. It's choosing tomorrow after yesterday tried to bury you. Where do we start? Elena asked, voice small but steady. Wyatt hefted a beam. Foundation first. Everything sits on that. They fell into a rhythm that surprised them both. Elena, who claimed she only knew how to burn things down, measured clean, cut square, and set true. Wyatt found himself watching her work, how focus gentled the lines of her face, how she hummed a tuneless scrap without knowing. You're staring, she said, not looking up, a ghost of a smile on her mouth. Thinking how Aaron was right, Wyatt said, setting his hammer down. You are special. Not because you're dangerous, because you fight for what matters. She met his eyes across the rising frame, the question hanging there. And what matters to you, Wyatt Mercer? 8 years alone had made him careful with words, but some truths don't wait. This, he said simply, motioning to the boards, the dust, the shape of a home. Building something real with someone who knows the best things cost you something. She walked close enough that he could see gold flecks in green. I won't be easy. I might wake from bad dreams reaching for a gun. I might forget how to talk for days. Then she smiled, clear and bright, the first real one he'd seen on her face. We might be a perfect fit. When he kissed her, it tasted like coffee and sawdust and beginnings. Like a promise kept to a dying man, and a brave choice made by 2 people done with running. 6 months later, the new house stood, larger than the old cabin, full of windows that drank light, a porch wide enough for 2 chairs and quiet evenings. Elena laughed again, round and unguarded, and Wyatt remembered how to hope. They married in spring, Marshal heart as witness, mountains for walls and sky for a roof. The past didn't vanish. Thomas's memory stayed. Aaron's sacrifice stayed. The weight of hard choices didn't leave. But they learned healing isn't forgetting. It's building something strong enough to carry the past forward. On a warm dusk, they sat side by side, watching the sun set the peaks on fire. Elena slid her fingers into Wyatt's. "You ever think what Aaron would say? He'd be proud," Wyatt said, rubbing his thumb across her knuckles. "He asked me to take care of you. I think he meant we should learn to take care of each other." In the blue hush after sunset, with their rebuilt life spread before them, solid, simple, and honest, that felt like the truest promise they'd ever keep. Some folks are born into big things. Some get pushed into them. A rare few find purpose by standing between harm and the innocent and refusing to move. Wyatt. Mercer found his there. And Elena Cross, who once thought she could only run, found that staying put with the right person can be the bravest thing a soul ever does.